Uh, I'm Chris Avina with American Outdoor News. Today we're here with Mike Arnold, the author of Bring Back the Lions and Wildlife Biologist. Mike, thank you so much for coming on again.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I always enjoy my time with you, especially if we're drinking adult beverages.
Yeah, it was great to see you back in January at the
Yeah.
Dallas Safari Club convention. And, it was good to catch up and catch in a little bit more of a casual type of atmosphere.
Absolutely. Yep.
So you've had a lot going on since we last spoke. You flew to Africa again,
Yeah.
and you were on a Cape Buffalo hunt, among other things. So, tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about how you got there, what you did there, and where we go from here.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So I'm to take a little bit of a step back. So you're right. I put out Bringing Back the Lions, the book last year, July 2022. It doesn't seem like could be that long ago. And that book is doing really well. And it focuses on Catata 11, as you know,
Uh-huh.
which is a hunting concession in Mozambique. While I wrote that book, and my wife gives me a hard time about this, she said, "Can't you just enjoy what you're doing and put it out there like a book?" This was my fifth book, but she said, "And just enjoy it for a while." And I said, "Well, I enjoy it," without thinking about another book. Well, while I was writing that, I realized that I need to think about conservation through trophy hunting, conservation through international hunting broadly, not
Hmm.
just Mozambique, but to do it in developed countries and developing countries. So North America, and in Mexico and in Europe and all, Central Asia and that sort of thing. And of course, in Africa. So in March, the trip that you alluded to, I went to Cameroon because I wanted to see a totally different setting. Number one, I've always wanted to go to Cameroon and hunt. Okay, I'm a
Sure.
passionate hunter, but for the book and for other articles, some of which are going to appear in American Outdoor News, as you
Yes,
know,
they do.
from this trip. But I put together this safari in Cameroon in the savannah, what they call the savannah area, which is a mixed forest grassland. It's not an out of Africa kind of savannah that maybe a lot of folks would think about.
Yeah.
One of the species that I did want to hunt there, one of the animals was a buffalo, and it's a West African savanna buffalo is the SCI designation for it. And it is one of these that doesn't have a big boss, like a Cape buffalo. Its horns are smaller. Body size is smaller as you go from the south, and many of your listeners, viewers will know this, but and I know you do, as you go from the south in Africa and you move up towards the equator and you curve left, you go
Yep.
west, you see that transition from the big, black, burly, Cape buffalo that you and I think about, and that both of us have taken all the way over to the dwarf forest buffalo, which is not what I hunted. It's transitional form that I hunted. When I was in Cameroon, I told my PH when I arrived, it was one of the species that we hunted, one of the animals. I said, I want a buffalo as red as my hair. And fortunately, I still have red hair. And to answer the question that keeps being, because I'm 65, answer the question that people ask me all the time. No, I do not color my hair. Thank you very much. This is genetics, okay? My mama's hair color, and it just hadn't gone gray yet. But he said, "Well, we can get you a red buffalo." And so they have this mixture. It's sort of like, though, I'll be honest, it's sort of like me going out wanting a cinnamon colored black bear.
Okay.
Okay, so you have those color phases in buffalo in that area. You have black, you have in between brown, red, like my hair color, to these black ones, to the anyway, mixed herds. But the red ones normally in this area are smaller than the black ones. So there's some kind of, I'm a geneticist, I'm a conservation geneticist, conservation biologist. And so, in fact, I'm talking to you from the University of Georgia's department head's office, Department of Genetics, because that's what I'm doing right now. I went nuts and told them I would do this for a little while. That's why I'm wearing a sports jacket, by the way. I don't hunt in this, just so everybody knows. But anyway, so the genetics is that you get these mixtures, and so you have a genetic variation, obviously, there, and you get red buffaloes and black buffaloes. And the red ones, they have these blonde hairs coming out of their ears. They have blonde highlights all over their, what we would, think of as their mane, and they're just gorgeous, and that's why I wanted one. And sure enough, we busted a lot of herds. The black ones normally were larger. My PH did not shoot me for turning down bigger, larger animals.
Yep.
So finally got the red one, and he's gorgeous.
Well, there's that misconception that the Cape Buffalo is the big black Cape Buffalo, Black Death.
Yep.
But there are many different subspecies,
yep,
so to speak, of the Cape Buffalo within Africa. There's probably at least half a dozen, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. You're exactly right. And that's that transition. You get them. So the one that I took in Mozambique, big old black thing that with the big boss and that sort of look to them, what we call a phenotype in science, but that look, that body form. And then you, once again, all the way over to the far western reaches in those dense tropical jungles where you get that dwarf buffalo. Someone asked me when they saw the photo of my red buffalo, the savanna buffalo, is that a dwarf forest buffalo? And I said, oh, no. No, it's still much larger than a dwarf forest buffalo. And also it was in totally wrong area. So,
yeah. And now, while you were there, you started a rhino as well?
No, we didn't do rhino work there. However, when we go back in June, so my wife and I are going back to Africa in June. We're flying into Johannesburg, and then we're going to Mozambique to Katata 11, where I wrote what I wrote the book about. And we're doing an update for Sports Afield. We've been asked to do an update on what they call the cats of Katata 11. So they've done 2 reintroductions that you and I talked about. So the lions and the cheetahs. And they wanted, Sports Afield covered the first story about them putting the lions in, and then they put the cheetahs in 22, sorry. And so they want us to go back to Katata 11 and write about what's going on with the cats. And so we're going to do that. Then we're coming back to South Africa, where I'm going to hunt in the Eastern Cape, do a little bit of hunting for birds and bushbuck and black wildebeest, but also research for this new book that's this global look at how we do conservation through hunting. Then we go to the Kalahari area of South Africa, and that's where I was asked to come in, and we'll be working with a set of scientists on a huge property over there that has black and white rhino. And that's dart rhino. You and I had talked about this. I don't know if they're going to let me hold the dart gun or not. Well, hopefully they will, but I'm not sure. I've never shot a dart gun in my life. So we'll see.
It's not a big deal shooting the dart gun. It's pretty accurate, and it's like shooting a paintball gun. And
well, you've done it. You did a green rhino hunt, and so that's cool.
I did, and it's kind of funny because I never hunted big game like that before, and or dangerous game. So that was my first foray into the big 5 or any type of dangerous game aside from black bear. These things are huge. So, needless to say, I was a little nervous going in, and I hunted at Tam Safaris. I was with my friend Lorraine Lawrence, who hunted with me as well, and Mike Miller was our cameraman. So We see two, we come through the brush up through this creek and the high grass and whatnot. We make our way through the thorn bushes and we see these two rhino.
Hmm.
So the PH tells me, he whispers, taps me on the shoulder, whispers, shoot the one on the left. And I'm hearing like Charlie Brown's teacher going, wah, wah, wah. So I shot the one on the right. I had a better shot.
There you go. Hey, it went down. I saw the photo. That was a beautiful animal.
It really was. And, it's funny. The trackers went after it. And we went back to the truck. We hopped into the back and, we followed the trackers. They were on horseback. And when we got there, the second rhino was not leaving his friend. He was standing guard and, the drug was taking effect and he was starting to go down. And as we pulled up, I'm sitting at the gate where the ladder is and it's open. And here comes this rhino charging at the truck right where I'm sitting. So I start pushing over a little bit and it's me, Mike, and Lorraine. I start pushing over a little bit. Mike nudges over, Lorraine nudges over, and it does a false charge and it backs off and charges again, comes a little closer, and it's probably within 3 feet. And I'm pushing to the side, and Mike's like, "Where do you want me to go?" I'm like, "I don't care, man."
Okay, I think there's an object lesson here, Chris. Don't pay them before you go out to hunt the thing. Make sure they gotta get the money afterwards, or you're not worth anything. I think that's a take-home message.
Pretty much. But it was funny. It was really funny, and it was a good time. It was the same as a regular hunt.
Yeah.
Except with a dart gun.
Sure.
As you know, the rhino don't go down right away.
Yeah.
So I think you're in for a treat. It's pretty exciting, as you know, and it's we got to get horn shavings and blood samples and hair samples and whatnot, which it's a conservation hunt. You do what you need to do.
Yep. I'm really looking forward to it. Unlike you, I have never seen rhinos of either one of those species in the wild. So this is going to be brand new for me as a biologist as well. I'm really excited, really, really excited to experience these animals. And the only reason they're there and the only reason that they're alive and still have their horns is because of hunters, funding this. And occasionally they'll have someone come in and take one of the really older males of black or white from this property, but it's only funded,
Well, it's there's a lot of money being poured into conservation of the rhino. Anti-poaching efforts are really strong, and there's no medicinal purposes for them to steal the horn.
Yeah,
it don't do anything.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, and the sad part about it is one of the questions I had for the guys and gals in Cotata 11 was, what are the next species that you're going to want to reintroduce here? And one of those, and you have to realize that, remind your listeners that the reintroductions aren't of non-native species, like the cheetahs and lions were there in this area in Cotata 11. Black rhinos were there, and that's one of the species they're looking at, but they said, we don't have the infrastructure yet. It's because you really have to have an army to protect them from and I'm not, from the poachers and because the poaching teams are hired by international people. Quite a lot of the money is coming from China, and it's known that the money pours in for poaching of elephants, poaching of rhinos, etc., from China, and that's big money. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
The African governments made a huge mistake a couple of years back. They confiscated a ton of elephant ivory and rhino horns and I mean, it was piles of it.
Yeah,
And they burned it.
I know.
If they put that out on the market, flooded the market, the values would go down, the
Mhm.
demand would go down,
Right.
and the poachers say, hey, we're not making money doing this anymore. What are we going to do next?
Yeah.
That could have alleviated the problem, right? Well, not completely, but it would have made a huge dent in it.
It could have easily made it also it made a huge difference in that particular time frame. But Chris, you and I also know that it could have led to a different model, right? Of these governments realizing, okay, when
Yeah,
we do this, we can get heads of money in for our conservation efforts and into our funds for our hunting concessions and national parks and all of these sorts of things to protect them from wood poaching or whatever it happens to be that they
sure.
need to do. But the other thing, though, the sad part about this is much of why they did that, much of the motivation was because of radical animal rights activists in the West, from
Yeah.
our country, from Europe, from England, etc. A lot of pressure comes on these countries. And basically, the pressure is, well, if you don't do what we tell you to, your tourism is going to go away. And that's a false dichotomy because the real important tourism for most of those countries, for many of those countries, is from hunters. We bring in so many more dollars than photographic tourism will ever do. And that the green quote unquote tourism of the animal rights activists just don't bring in that kind of money. So it's a false economy, but that's the threat that is over
Well,
there.
simple truth of the matter is these uh, animal rights groups, they're not as informed as we as hunters are. We're really the boots on the ground, and they're raising millions of dollars and they're putting it into hate campaigns. None of that money goes into the conservation that we put in.
Yeah. Well, they're losing. The thing about it is that, and that's what I, tried to explain. And you've read the book. I mean, I've highlighted how for non-hunters, not anti-hunters, but for non-hunters in particular in that first book, how the hunting dollars, where do they go? Are hunters really only coming over and killing an animal, lopping the head off and heading home? And of course
No,
that's what we do. And where does the money go? Why does it work? Why does this model work as opposed to photographic tourism, for example, that doesn't work? It tears up more land. And as a biologist and scientist, I can talk to people about carbon footprints and say, look, hunting leaves no carbon footprint behind because you have to keep the habitats intact to have the animals there for the few hunters that come through compared to photographic tourism.
sure.
But the thing about it is that what people come to understand when we start to explain this is, oh, okay, I see how the money develops communities and causes those communities, the local communities, to want to conserve their animals and plants and all these different habitats. Because I know it sounds crass at some level, but it really is a true statement. If it pays, it stays. And, for those developing countries that are hurting for money, to prove to them and to show them what that economy looks like with hunters coming through, it amazes them. And they realize, holy smokes, we can develop what is essentially a middle class situation for our people in these areas compared to their countrymen and women elsewhere. Once that becomes evident and apparent to them, they're very intelligent, very smart, and they go, this is what we want. And they know how to, take care of their own resources. That's the bottom line. The animal rights activists do not.
Well, I like I said, they're not educated the way the people with the boots on the ground are.
Exactly.
They have hands-on experience. They're not just keyboard warriors.
Yep, absolutely.
So Bring Back the Lions. Is there going to be a second part or a next book coming?
There is a next book coming. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was on Larry Weishuhn's podcast last week, I guess it was. We recorded one. And he said, "So what's the title of your new book, Mike, that you're working on right now?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you what my title is. It's the first part of the title, but I'll tell you that two editors that I've spoken with and my book agent hate my title, so I don't think it's going to last." And Larry just laughed at me and said, "Well, tell us anyway." I call it Many Paths to Eden, and what I meant by that initially, so it's a placeholder for, but anyway, it's what I mean by that is that there's a lot of models used around the world, whether we're in developed countries like the US or developing countries like Cameroon, but they all lead to ecological restoration, ecosystem restoration, and conservation, and then community uplift, people having their quality of life improved.
Sure.
So what I'm doing is right now is I'm doing the research. It's taken a little bit longer than the Cantata 11 book, just simply because I have to get to various areas in the world. But I have gotten to most of them so far. And now we'll go back to South Africa, look at, for example, in the Eastern Cape, you know South Africa well, but in the Eastern Cape, I'm looking at a situation where it's low fence, and so there. It's low fence. We're going to go up into the mountains and hunt birds as well, gray wing and other species of birds. But we're looking at a mixed agricultural system and game farming, if you will. Now it's low fence, so those game are hopping back and forth, obviously, anywhere they want to go. But I wanted to look at a situation where in South Africa, I already have a high fence situation that was gorgeous, Blowkrantz in the Eastern Cape. I recommend it to anybody. It's 100,000 acres of, you don't ever see the fence, but it's a beautiful area. But so I have that as an example, but this is a mixture that's different, the way they do it. And then, of course, we'll go to the Kalahari. That property, which is, goodness, 250,000 acres, maybe something like that. It is high fenced to protect the rhino, right? Yeah. And so that's a situation that's very different, but it's also funded by hunters. So I'm doing that, and we have Cameroon, and we have the Yucatan, and we have this. And then in October, many of your viewers and listeners will probably write me letters and ask me if I'm gone crazy, but we're going to Pakistan for
wow.
3 weeks. Yeah. Now,
that's exciting.
It is. And we're going to go all the way from the Thar Desert in the far south, all the way through to the Himalayas. And our host there is a hunter. He is also lives in Karachi, he and his wife. He's also owns a pharmaceutical company. He knows all these people. He does community outreach all the time. I'll hunt a little bit while I'm there for one of the antelope species. So it's called the Indian gazelle, but it's in Pakistan. So I'll hunt for the chinkara is the other name for it.
Well, they're bordering countries anyway, Pakistan. They're bordering countries anyway, Pakistan and India.
Absolutely, and it's in that area in the Punjab where I'll be hunting. So we'll do that. We're going to be looking because I wanted a Central Asian example, as well, and thought about Tajikistan. That didn't really work out, but Pakistan did, and I was amazed, that we actually. I didn't see myself going to Pakistan. Let's just put it that way. But this has worked out real well.
It's funny you mentioned the high fence, and a lot of people say, I don't want to hunt high fence. 100,000 acres.
Well, that's the silly part. And also you and I both know. So one of the animals, that was my first safari. I did go up into the mountains and hunt a Valrybok that was not in a fenced area because they don't occur in fenced areas. That was actually my first species of African animal that I shot while I was there, was a volley. But the thing about it is, I would encourage anyone who wanted to go across and hunt, if the property is of sufficient size, and so many of them are so large, like this one, Blaugrund,
50,
and
50,000, 100,000, 200,000 acres.
You never
It's,
see the
I
fence.
can't even, I mean,
Yeah.
I hunted high fence. It was 75,000 acres. It was,
Yep.
you didn't see fences.
Well, no, and the Impala ram that I shot while I was there in the fenced area, we were driving down a road, and this road happened to bisect two sections that were, 60,000 and 40,000. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, there were high fences on either side, and we watched this Impala ram and all his ewes, his harem. They jumped over one high fence, ran across the road, jumped over the other high fence. So it doesn't really stop all these animals.
No,
some don't do that, but most of them can absolutely jump these fences. So
I'm actually, as we speak, I'm looking up. Long Island is almost 900,000 acres. So some of these concessions are almost a quarter or an eighth of Long Island.
Absolutely. They're humongous. Once again, I mean, if you think about it, you just, well, I can attest to the fact, unless we tried, we would never see the fence. I mean, you can't cover the area. The concession in Cameroon was about the size. Now, it's not fenced, obviously, but it's about the size of the Blaugrund's property. And we covered so small of an amount of that Cameroon concession that I was just on and safari in March. I mean, I don't think most of us have a conception of what the size of these properties, like you said.
Well, my hunting club was 600 acres.
Yeah. Hey,
it was nothing compared to these places.
No, it's really not. I mean, you drive in and you're there, you're on your self-contained property, and it's wonderful. And also, the people have to understand that someplace like South Africa that has these fenced properties, the reason they're fenced is to protect the wildlife. Sure. And protect oftentimes to protect the local human inhabitants as well, because properties can have cheetahs, they can have all sorts of different things on them that you don't want disturbing the agricultural situations that, the chickens, the ducks, the goats, the cattle, the whatever. And so the fencing, the privatization of this has, number one, led to explosions in numbers of animals, not just game animals. We're talking about songbirds and raptors, hawks and whatever else, and all of these different things, animals and plants that are not hunted or collected. So it's been a boon for the ecological systems there.
Well, again, that's the trickle-down effect.
It is
part of the conservation that we do.
Yep, and the employment of the locals and the schooling of the locals, as you will have seen, and where you were, and the medical treatment that they have because of the $100 going in is just phenomenal.
Yep. And so what's next for you, Mike?
Well, I've gotten you out to October, but I'm actually working on a trip to Spain, where I'll probably hunt mouflon.
Oh, beautiful.
Possibly chamois. Yeah, I know. I got to have some strong 25-year-old guide to lug me up the hills, I think, is what I've told them over there. I'm not sure I'm up to climbing those mountains. I'll climb the mountains. So that is maybe this fall as well. We're working on that right now. I'm working with a conservation research organization over there, but it's a conservation research organization that is built on hunters and hunters' dollars. And they're the reason that the ibex is back in Spain. They're the reason the chamois is doing well. They're the reason that the mouflon is doing well. And they're the reason that many, the lynx, which is not, hunted, they dump partridges out onto these properties for driven hunts that people quite often anti-hunters will castigate. Oh, these poor birds. Well, those poor birds are driving the raptors to increase in numbers that we've never seen before as biologists in these places, bringing them back from extinction. And they're also allowing the European lynx, which is one of the most endangered species in the world, to skyrocket in numbers. Wow. One of the properties went from 0 to 40 lynxes just because of these release where they, have these European driven hunts.
Yep.
And so the lynxes were going, holy smokes, look at all the birds.
People don't realize that's a lot on one property though.
Absolutely. Oh, it's huge. And once again, they were really predicted to be extinct by now. Not extinct by now. But they are extinct in those areas where there's nothing to support them, in terms of food and habitat. So, but anyway, so that's the other thing. Now, from there, I don't know, Chris, I'm going to be writing, probably send you some more articles until you tell me to stop.
I'll take all you got, all you want. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Where can we find Bring Back the Lions?
So if folks can type in bringingbackthelions.com. Okay, now just one word, bringingbackthelions.com, no spaces. That will take them to the page on my website. And if they order it there, they'll get a signed copy. Now, if they can also go to Amazon, they can go to their bookstores and order it. Just ask them, type in bringingbackthelions.com. But if they do that, then I don't see them, so I don't end up signing them. Okay. So those are the bringingbackthelions.com. They can get a signed copy, but they can go on to any one of the other sources as well.
Well, I read your book. It's a great read, really informative, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mike, I appreciate your time. Look forward to talking to you again, and good luck on your trip this year.
Thank you, Chris.
We love our children. We protect them. We guide them. We prepare them for life in the world. With all that we do, from deep in our hearts, we cannot control all things. Life-threatening illnesses and disabilities affect far too many of our children each year. While we cannot change the circumstance, we can make dreams come true. Dreams to provide hope, to provide spiritual healing and strength, to provide moments of happiness and relief in the hardest of times. We can give a glimmer of light and hope in a time of darkness and despair. Join huntofalifetime.org to help make dreams come true, to provide hope for children with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Hunt of a Lifetime is a non-profit organization fulfilling dreams for hunting and fishing trips to youth 21 and under with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Visit huntofalifetime.org to learn how you can make a difference.